Good evening. There we go. There we go. Thank you so very much for coming, and we appreciate it. I'm very excited. My friend David's here. Can we welcome him? You got to turn it on. You got to turn the microphone on, David.
Lottery just lost a lot of money to Missouri last night, but okay.
Oh Lord, here we go. Well, we're going to show you some slides. We don't have enough time to go into all of it, but I'm going to do kind of an overview, and David's going to add some color commentary, and then we're going to take some questions, and then we're going to do what good Methodists do. We're going to eat. So there's lots of food in the back and different things for you, so we are looking forward to that. So be kind of formulating your questions as we go through that. We were just laughing a minute ago because this is actually the pose that we were in when we were driving together all over creation. Yeah, exactly. And going, oh, hey, look, that's on fire over there. Yeah, don't film that yet. Oh, no, sorry.
Don't post.
Yeah, don't post. That's what that was. So let me just begin with a word of prayer, and then we'll get started. Father, I thank you for all these who've gathered to hear, Lord, just a story of your grace. And your, Lord, just power at work. Lord, I thank you for the incredible adventure that we shared together in Israel, David and I, and I thank you for your grace over us as we did some incredible work and were able to accomplish a great many things for your glory. And so tonight, as we talk about this, as we look at the different things that happened, may you bring to our memory all the different little intricacies that made the trip amazing. And so we thank you for your grace here tonight. We thank you for your presence. And Lord, may you be honored. In Christ's name, amen. So the way this all began is early this year, I had talked to SPRC about taking a sabbatical, and we began to kind of plan and look at that, and it coincided with finishing up school, and so the plan was to go to school, then be done and graduated, and then on May 18th, I would be, which was a Sunday, then I would be officially starting the sabbatical. And for those of you who may not know what a sabbatical is in the religious world, so typically the way that works is that pastors are given 3 months every 7 years to go and for renewal, to go and to just kind of be revived and get rest and begin to dream and think about different things. And actually, Sean Taylor was back in 2017, said, hey, you might want to think about doing this. It only took me a long time. It's 7 years, 8 years, I guess, to do that, Sean. But so that's how it began. And my plan was initially, I'm going to go to Israel for a month, for the month of June. And then from there, I'm going to go and do ministry in Germany for a couple of weeks. And then I'm going to leave there and maybe spend a week or a few days in the UK to visit the British Museum. And then I was going to round things out in Panama. We have some missionaries there, and they have a retreat. And so I was going to go stay there. So as those things began to develop, all of them fell apart except Israel. So the Germany thing didn't work out, and I wasn't able to go to UK, and wasn't able to go to Panama as I'd hoped. So, but let me tell you, the adventure that was had in Israel was more than enough for all those other things. So when I arrived, it was the 21st. I arrived in the Holy Land, and right away it was going to be different because there were passport woes. So for the first time ever, when I landed in Israel, I showed up, and you have to go through passport control before you can go get your luggage. And so I went up to the line, got up there, handed my passport, and I could tell they were trying to do something, and it didn't work. And so they called for somebody in Hebrew, and they had a supervisor kind of lead me away. So, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's happening. But the good thing is it was waiting in the concourse. So they didn't take me to a back office, and they didn't do anything like that. And I really didn't know. I began to, as you might, I didn't bring anything I wasn't supposed to in my luggage or anything like that. And so I just started thinking about, and so I waited for about 45 minutes before anyone came out to talk to me. And while I was waiting, Bless her heart, this woman, probably mid to late 30s, came out of this back area running and screaming at the top of her lungs, and just absolutely distraught. She looked like she was maybe Czechoslovakian or something from that area, maybe Russian. She was just running out crying and screaming, and I just thought, lady, that is the wrong place to do that. And I really thought I was about to see a takedown of her. But what was amazing is the Israelis just surrounded her, they comforted her, and they took her kind of in the back room. And then it looked like when her husband or boyfriend showed up, she ran out again and embraced him. So I don't know what was going on. I just thought, well, this is already a spicy trip, and I haven't even really started on that. And so finally, when they came out, what we found out was that the biometric chip that your passport contains quit working. And so they had to I had to give them a secondary identification, and then got that. And so meantime, to keep me company, David was sending me a picture of himself drinking the coffee that I love so much, just saying, hey, what's going on? Hey, do you need some help back there? Are they taking you back to question? Ha, 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 ha. And I'm like, this isn't funny. And so I sent him that picture back, like, really? Come on. And so after 45 minutes, we were able to get through and get my luggage, and then we started on the adventure. And David was real nice. He brought me some Mentos, and that's an ongoing joke. So moving through the land, there were several places that we went and things that we did. Some of this will be out of order. It won't be exactly chronological, but some of the places that we went might be familiar to some of you. So one of the first places that I was able to go was in the Old City, which I dearly love. So David dropped me off in Jerusalem. I was staying in Jerusalem, and I could just walk right into the Old City. So I went to the familiar places. I went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and was able to see them do a sanctifying service for the Holy Sepulchre. I was able to watch kind of the transition, the Armenian priest, and doing some things. So that was really neat. You can see on the right. Don't worry if you can't see it clearly. I'll be happy to show you photos on my phone. But he has a really just crazy, outrageous setup with the hat and everything. So I'm thinking about getting that for here, but I'm not sure. So then I went from there to St. Mary's at the Pools of Bethesda, and I got there a little late that day, and so I had to sweet talk the priest to let me in, and there was no one in there. So it was just me. And so if you've never been to St. Mary's at the Pools of Bethesda, it is unbelievable, the acoustics. It is unlike any place you will ever be. And so what I did is I just started humming to see what it would sound like, and it just reverberated all throughout there. So it was really outstanding. Real quick, how many of you have been to Israel with me? Would you raise your hand? Okay, you know what I'm talking about then, that church and the
St. Anne's.
St. Anne's. I'm sorry, what did I say?
Mary. That's a different church.
Different church. Okay, thank you for anything else you'd like to add on St. Anne's?
No problem. I just want to let you know that we did, as a joke, have somebody with gloves at customs.
Okay, moving right along.
Try to top that.
Yeah. So here's a picture of St. Anne's on the inside of where I was sitting. Thank you so much for that, David. And so it's just an incredible place. If you're able to get over there, that's one of the places we stop in the Old City. So then we went on a trip to Mount Arbel and then Caesarea Philippi. So that's David in the chic hat walking, because Colonnette made him promise to wear a hat, because David and I, even though we have different mothers, I think we're related. We're both really pale and pasty. And so
we're too white for where we are.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So Mount Arbel is this huge, just a huge overlook through a valley where Jesus would have walked to travel to and from different places. And then I walked around some different places in Caesarea Philippi. There is an old mill. There are some old ancient ruins that we normally don't get to. And so I just took some time to go there. So this is all kind of in the first couple of weeks. I realized in my mind, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna have to get my passport renewed. But I've got a little time, and I'm just going to enjoy being here, and I'm kind of a little jet lagged. So we spent several days. We went up. Some of y'all saw this. We literally went to a ski resort at Mount Hermon. There's a ski resort up there. I knew no one would believe me, so that's it on the left and in the middle, and it's up at the very kind of top. So mountains in Israel are not like mountains here. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's not like Pikes Peak or those things where you climb. It's a range usually. And so when you talk about Mount Hermon or the Carmel, you're talking about a range. When you talk about Sinai, it's a range of mountains. There's not like one main peak where people go and where the big events happen in the Bible. It's in that range somewhere. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm doing pretty good.
But part of that travel is you've been very kind as a church to help out with a lot of things happening for border communities, not only in the south by Gaza, but also in the north. So Mount Hermon is in the north, but you have to pass a special community, a Bedouin Druze community, and this particular community, as we're going to Mount Hermon, it's the only, you have to pass it. And they don't have time really to get to a bomb shelter when a ballistic missile is coming from Hezbollah. And there was a soccer field one day filled with kids, and we went to pay our respects to that soccer field. So we're doing this interesting type of dynamic where we're enjoying the sights of Israel, but we're also paying respects to things that were happening since October 7th. It's not only happening to Israeli Jews, it's happening to Israeli non-Jews as well as the citizens of the state. So I said, since we're going to visit there, let's bring you to Mount Hermon because it's very rare that you're going to be there. Our hope was we would be able to go all the way to the top. We got there a little late and we weren't able to, but no one's on the road to go because we're still in wartime and the eeriness of that. So I want you to understand, first of all, the appreciation that we have as the Isaiah Projects, that you would be organizationally partnering with us, because part of that was going to Metula and going to the Syrian border as well. So I just wanted to let you know that part of it is getting to see, Pastor Adam's getting to see what's happening. So I'll fill in the blanks as we're going along.
Yeah, we have I have some slides on that, but when you give to the Isaiah Projects, that money goes for relief in those areas. It has gone to help people rebuild their lives, to get small things. It's gone to help people with, very practical needs like appliances, kind of remodeling the inside of houses. Very on the ground, not high and lofty stuff, but stuff that people just need to be able to survive and be able to do those sorts of things. And so, yeah, these are the places that I'm talking about, but intermixed in there when I first arrived, part of the design was to go to places that our church has helped to fund and to support. And so there's a couple of slides in here you'll see where it has our name on plaques that are set up in different places as a memorial. And so that was kind of, so we would go to some places, and then we would go on a side stop, and then we would go over here, and then we'd have some Mentos, and then we would go over here and do this and have some falafel, and then we go, and it was kind of intermixed back and forth in that. So that I was able to do is in Jerusalem go to, of course, the Jewish quarter, but I spent more time on Jaffa Street than I have ever spent. So Jaffa Street is like the main street in Jerusalem. It is so long, it's wide open. There's very little car traffic, if any at all. The trains weren't running while I was there. Normally the trains will run, but there are people in various types of motorbikes or motor vehicles, and some of them are going faster than the speed of light. So you just stay out of their way. They just zoom past. So that picture right here, the second one starting from the right over, is a picture of Jaffa Street. And actually we're going to get to a slide. There's a building, you may not be able to see it real well at the top. We actually stayed on the 24th floor of that building when the war broke out. So we'll get to that in a minute.
When the war in the war.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so when the second war broke out, that's where we were. So again, here's some pictures of the famous market, the wall. I put a prayer in the wall, and there's another picture of Jaffa Street. And I believe that's that building. Is that it right there, David? On the right? Is that the one we stayed in? I think that is.
No, that's the Cloud Building.
Okay, like I said, that's the Cloud Building. That's
Right.
it's not the one we stayed
I
in.
don't think so.
Part of also the trip was to go to some places that I had never been before that you don't typically take groups. And so I'd never been to the Valley of Elah. For those who know your Bible, that is the scene of David and Goliath, is in the Valley of Elah. So when I got up there, I have to say it was very different than what I expected. So you can kind of see this overlook. There's a kind of a monument set up there. There are several stones that have been engraved in Hebrew to commemorate that scene. And it gives you a picture. What I appreciated about it, and David did such a great job of laying out the land. And you're able to point and see where things are, and you're able to kind of get this visual picture of the armies of Israel versus the Philistine armies, and where they were and where the battle took place. And there was this little plaque in the ground that says, "This is where David killed Goliath." I'm just kidding, it's not there. But you get this sense of what is happening there.
Just to know that we now patent That's It tours. Part of what Adam's trying to get me to do is to be a tour guide and explain things beyond what the Bible says to make it more interesting. And I say, I just take you to the place, That's It tours. You could take out your phone and use Google, and you really don't need me. So the joke is that we're establishing That's It tours. You're welcome to come in. It's very cheap. You don't need a tour guide. Just bring your phone. I'll take you place to place.
That comes from, and we'll get Ariel. Ariel, stand up and wave at everybody. This is David's third son, Ariel. He looks so much like David. So David has this pattern when he's talking that I picked up on. He would say, well, we're going to go to the store, and that's it. And that's how he finishes the sentence. That's it, period. And so that's how he does tours, too. So up on this Valley of Elah, we're overlooking. I said, so where is it right there? And he's like, it's somewhere down there. I mean, that's it. And I was just like, you're horrible at this. And he said, yeah, I know. Look on your phone. So that was the whole thing. And so I said, man, you could be a tour guide. You could start That's It tours. You could make a 9-day tour get done in 5 days, and we could just spend the rest of the time doing whatever we wanted because the guided tour would be so short. So that's where that came from. But that kind of began there. We were laughing about that. But it really is laid out quite interestingly, so you can see where cities are and the landscape and get a sense of that. One of the other places that David took me was, is that right?
Zichron Yaakov.
Okay, I misspelled it.
Okay.
I got the last one right, but I'll let David tell y'all kind of what this is with That's It tours.
So my wife always says to me, I was born in the wrong generation. I should have been born in the late 1800s, early 1900s, as the beginnings of the modern Zionism movement is taking place. And there are a few communities that the modern Zionism movement began, meaning, what do I mean by modern Zionism? That Jews in the land of Israel or outside the land of Israel are taking an active participation in redemptive history. Instead of waiting around and hopefully something will happen, why don't we be part of that process? Zichron Yaakov and other places in Israel were sort of the cornerstone communities to say, we as Jews are building this that for the intention to create redemptive history in partnership with God. And one of those communities is Zichron Yaakov. I live in the middle of the country, a place called Netanya, which is about 15, 20 minutes away from Caesarea for those people who've come to Israel. So if you're coming from the airport, Tel Aviv, and you're going to Caesarea, which is usually the first stop that most Christian tourists go to, I live about 15, 20 minutes from Caesarea. But many people pass this place called Zichron Yaakov. That means they're passing a place that is so crucial to the formation of the state of Israel. This is where Rothschild comes in. He sponsors these individual communities. But for me, the first spy network, pre-state, is established here by a guy who looks like an accountant, Aaron Aronson. Along with his family, Sarah Aronson and others, they form something called Nili, which comes out from the book of Samuel, that the existence of Israel does not lie. So it's an acronym of that. And they're the ones who provide the intelligence to the British Army to defeat the Ottoman Empire. So this is all done through old school pigeon messages. And
No Google?
No Google back then. And unfortunately, one of the pigeons stopped. One of the people from the Ottoman Empire caught the pigeon. They look at the message, and they realize there's a spy network within their midst, and they find the members and kill them. But Aaron Aronson, who's the head of Nili, of this first spy network, is an agronomist, meaning he's a person who studies wheat and other grains, and he's trying to find a way for people to be able to eat, because there was issues of starvation. He comes up with the essence of the wheat and trying to copy that, and becomes very famous through that. So this guy looks like an accountant. He's very smart, speaks many languages, and he's also a spy. So one day maybe there will be a movie on him, but the house still stands and the story still continues, and is part of anybody who's growing up in schools in Israel. They always pay a visit to Zichron Yaakov. It's just part of the history, I would say memories of who we are as a people, taking on redemption and being partners with God to advance it. I wish I was part of that, because that was something that's vital to the establishment for the state of Israel, because the Brits defeat the Ottomans and eventually lay out the Balfour Declaration, and then leads eventually to the state of Israel. So there's very few moments that you can be part of something that's pioneering like that. And I'm setting up the line for this right now, because Zichron Yaakov becomes part and parcel of what we're going to do during the Iranian phase of the war.
And that's it. So, so you can see there's a bar mitzvah going on. There are these wonderful shops. It is a wonderful small village kind of atmosphere where incredible history takes place, and you just wouldn't know. I mean, if you just showed up you were stumbling through that area and went through, you'd say it's really nice and all that, but the Aronson kind of museum is very unassuming. You wouldn't know. And so one of the things David did is to walk me through there. I think I got most of it. I'm sorry I didn't get the name right, but I was severely jet lagged, if you remember, as we went through there. But it was fascinating, and I would love to go back. So we're skipping around, so it's not sequential. But one of the other things is I got to go to a place that I'm a student of history and have loved, and that's the city of Akko. So David had a meeting where he could not. It was a day. I had a whole day, and his wife Colonique graciously offered to take me to this place. She loves that. She's an incredible tour guide. I'm just saying.
I agree. She's my competitor.
Yeah, so not really competing at all. But so we went to the city of Akko, or Acre, which is an ancient medieval city that takes place 11th and 12th century, that during the Crusades. There's if you're a fan of medieval knights and all that goes with that, that is a very important area before the Muslims under Salah ad-Din take over. It is a huge place. It's very important. And so the fortress is still there. And so Colonide and I went through and we went through. That's her on the left pointing out. And I have to say about that photo, I sent David a text saying, she thinks I'm paying attention. And he responded back, you better. So, but she has such a great love for history and was talking about it, and we were able to walk through and see some incredible things. Here's kind of a picture of what the city would look like, and then the fortress and different buildings. There were these incredible trees, and I can't remember the name of them, but they were all in this garden. It was just extraordinary to walk through history and just be a part of that. So I was so very grateful. Got to spend some time walking around and getting kind of a tour and explanation from Colonnade. So if you've not yet met or been around, and I think most of you haven't, Colonnade is pretty amazing. She's pretty wonderful. I keep trying to get her to come to Texas, and she keeps going, that kind of stuff. So we'll get her. We'll get her at some point. You got to help me with that. What? There you go. Then, of course, I played some golf. There is exactly one golf course in all of Israel, and it's at Caesarea. And so David, because he's a good friend, called, and actually the father of his middle son's girlfriend is a member at this club. And so he went out. So that's the three of us. That's David in the hat, the fancy hat. That's me. And then Daniel is in the back. And we had a great time. We had just an outstanding time. I played terrible, but it was just amazing. It was very surreal to think there's a war going on against Hamas, and we're playing golf. And but the whole country is like that. It's just like, one of the questions I got asked most when I came back was, well, what did you do when you came out of the shelter? And I said, I went to the grocery store. And that's what everybody does. They just kind of go on with life. They were like, oh, that was interesting, and then they just move on with life. And so it was extraordinary to watch that and be a part of that and to play and to just have a great time, get to know Daniel. Daniel loves golf. Daniel loved to tell me about golf. He loved to tell me about the different holes and what they do and different things. He did that quite a lot, actually. Anyway, so then we also went to what David talked about, Metula, which it's a kibbutz, isn't it?
It's not kibbutz.
It's not? Okay.
Agricultural community.
Oh, so it's a moshav, right?
It's like a moshav.
Okay.
It's like a farm. It's a farming community literally on the border of Lebanon. And on October 7th, while Hamas was attempting to take over Israel on the south, Hezbollah was supposed to be in coordination with Hamas on that day. And part of the whole process of the beginnings of the war is we found out that Hezbollah was supposed to be there, and we were putting troops on the Lebanon border.
And this is the October 7th war.
October 7th. So this community becomes prime target for missiles, and obviously the community gets evacuated. You're basically a refugee in your own country. We had tens of thousands of people who are on borders of different areas in Israel, living in hotels for about a year and a half, depending which community you were coming from. Metula only came back this summer. Coming back, it wasn't safe for many of them to come back. And also it was the school year, and they had to wait till the end of the school year. Because of you, we were able to give them security cameras on the border. One of the things that the Army said to border communities is you don't need security cameras, you can rely on us. Okay? If you had security cameras, it would have been a different war, but they didn't. So there was a trust that the country has for the Army and for the government. On October 7th, both covenants were broken. And so there is a major psychological damage to all of us when your army feels like it abandoned you, and it feels like the government abandoned you. And Metula is one of those. Although they were not attacked, the northern side wasn't attacked like Hamas did to the south. Just to leave like that and live in temporary housing for a long, long time, and then come back. What does it mean to come back? What's the security situation? So we graciously, with your help, were able to go ahead and do something. But he was on the Lebanon, and then I told him this, I actually went into Lebanon to see the gas station there, right on the border. That's how close this community is to the Lebanon border.
I did not go into Lebanon. I did not go into Gaza, as far as anyone knows. So Metula is important too. is because on the left is that what's called the eye in the sky. So it is a 360-degree camera that you're able to see all around. It has its own power source, solar power. It is a trailer. It's sophisticated, and it goes up how many feet? Would you say about 40 feet in the air, something like that?
Much higher than that.
Okay, it goes up much higher than that. It's how much would you say?
I don't know. 12 meters. What's 12 meters? 40 feet. So much lower than that. That's it, tours. I'm sorry. 40 feet.
So yeah, that's on the border. The guys on the left, we took a picture, and then you can see the different names of people over here who supported that and who were part of that. You'll see those different things throughout, and then that right there, I think that's Lebanon, isn't it? Right there.
That's Lebanon.
Right there. It's real weird because Metula is like a finger that goes up, and you're surrounded on three sides by Lebanon.
But with communities that are directly across from Metula, from Lebanese.
So the threat is real all the time. They live in these areas, and they are constantly have to be on guard and really wary about that. But despite that, they're incredible people. It was nobody was running around and afraid, and they were like, "Oh, hey, great to meet you. Come on in." You know, it's just like, wow, this is pretty credible. So
just to point something out, if Hezbollah coordinated with Hamas on October 7th, the probability of me being here with you today is slim. That's how dangerous that coordination was. We uncovered a whole network of tunnels. Houses were filled with arsenal, and they have more firepower than Hamas does. So if it truly was coordinated, this was a different type of war. For some reason, they did not, and that's the grace of God.
Indeed. So this next one is Kibbutz Alumim, which is a wonderful place. You can see our logo right there.
And Kerem Shalom.
Oh, is this Kerem Shalom?
So the sign on your left side is Kibbutz Kerem Shalom.
Okay, we went there too. Okay, how about that? We went to Kerem Shalom.
That's your logo on the Kerem Shalom. Kerem Shalom is very famous right now because anybody who's talking about humanitarian assistance into Gaza has to go through the Kerem Shalom crossing. On the border of the Kerem Shalom crossing into Gaza is this kibbutz, a few hundred people, and they were really attacked on October 7th. Thank God for their internal security squad. Members of their internal security squad died in fighting Hamas terrorists. And so there was a person, the arsenal is quite incredible, but people were inside their bomb shelter doors holding on to the handle so Hamas couldn't get in, but you had to hold on to the handle inside. A bomb shelter is about making sure you're safe from rockets. You don't think there will be a terrorist inside your home with an RPG or with semi-automatic weapons. There was one person, his name is Schindler, this is the Schindler family. The father was holding on to the handle inside the bomb shelter door, and then they put an explosive on the handle, and it blew off his arm and took off fingers from another arm. He survived. Went back, this happened on October 7th. Thank God he really survived. He had many kids. And he came back December of 2023 to light Hanukkah lights in his home. All right, so that's Kibbutz Kerem Shalom. That's the big sign over there. In the middle, that middle picture, that is Kibbutz Alumim. Kibbutz Alumim was also attacked. 22 workers from Thailand and from, what's the other country? It'll come up to me, but foreign workers that come in to help out the kibbutzim, these agricultural communities, they were brutally murdered. So everybody was Jewish on October 7th from Hamas's point of view, even Muslims. So you were also part of helping out Muslim families that were killed. There was a mother of 12 children killed by Hamas on the road. The father we helped out with supermarket cards so that he could feed his kids.
So you get a picture, a sense that you see our logo on signs, on many signs, where we were part of many people who helped in various ways throughout and after October 7th. Especially, I know one of the first things that this church did was to provide hotel rooms for families that were evacuated for a period of time. So we don't have time to show you all the different ones. There are tons of signs, there are tons of plaques that we have people from this church that are named, or the logo, or the people collectively to be able to help out for those that were affected by October 7th.
So you donated to Kibbutz Kerem Shalom fireproof, bulletproof bomb shelter doors. So the community was able to come back. And they did. And they actually have more people now than they had before October 7th.
And not all of the kibbutzim are like that. Some of them, Kfar Aza, a sad situation, had between 600 and 800 people in it, and now there's about 25 people there.
Currently living until the rebuilding takes place. But even though there are houses intact, they don't feel safe to be there because it's still a military zone in certain places, yeah.
So there's, in some of them, one of the people who we talked to when we were over there, who gave us a tour in Kfar Aza and drove us around, and many of the places that you see in the news where Hamas drove bulldozers through fences, that was Kfar Aza, and so this lady was actually in Portugal at the time that this happened. And she has come back, and she's doing these tours actually against the will of the leadership, because she wants people to know what happened there, and feels, I think, somewhat responsible because she wasn't there when it happened. And her father lives there, and so she took us around and showed us these different things. And the proximity, you're looking into Gaza. It's so close, and you're able to see how fast they were able to get there and take out all sorts of things. So that was a very hard day. That was the Monday after I arrived, and we saw several places, and I just needed a day. And I'll show you some of those pictures. I'm not going to show you all of them, but because we don't have that time. But there was a lot going on, and we'll get into that in another part of kind of the presentation. But I wanted to end this part. This kind of happened at the end, but I kind of wanted to put this as a contrast for what we're about to see. So for about 15 years, 16, how long have we known each other?
Yeah, 15 years.
15 years. It only feels like 15 minutes underwater.
Yeah.
So
Chinese torture.
For 15 years, David used to work for an organization that was kind of a branch of Or Torah Stone, and it was called the Center for Jewish Christian Understanding and Cooperation. And he moved a couple of years ago and started really his own thing, the Isaiah Projects. But when he was there, he worked under a rabbi, one of them named Shlomo Riskin, who's a very famous rabbi in Israel. We don't know him, but I'd been trying to meet him for 15 years. Just, hey, I'd love to meet him and get to know him a little bit and all of this. And so, David, we were able to do that this last time. Unfortunately, Rabbi Riskin is suffering from Parkinson's, and so it was interesting and maybe a little difficult to see him, especially for David, I think, more than me, because David knew him when he was this brilliant man who was on the cutting edge of change in Israel in a lot of ways. And so we were able to go over there, and David said to me, I won't forget this, he said, we're going to go in, and the way we're going to play this or angle this is that you've come here for a blessing, because he doesn't get to do that anymore. And it's something that he really loved. And so I was like, absolutely, I'll take one of those. I need lots of them. So this is from that, us. And he prayed the prayer that the priest praise over the people. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you. The Lord. So it was a very that was one of 2 or 3 moments that were that were really powerful for me to be able to do that, that still sits with me, for him to do that, for him to welcome me into his home. And what was really funny, though, is there's video of this, but you can't hear him saying it because the news was on so loud behind us that it just bleeds out the words. And so we were laughing about that afterwards. But it was an incredible moment to do that. Dave, give them just a little picture of who Rabbi Riskin is.
If anyone is familiar with Billy Graham, Rabbi Riskin would be equal to Billy Graham in Judaism. That's how well respected and how far his reach was when he was being chief rabbi of Efrat. But he started off his rabbinic career in New York City in the 1970s. He was called Stevie Wonder, Rabbi Stevie Wonder. He had this great charisma and warmth that he would go out in the streets in Manhattan to find Jews, to bring them into synagogue so they can identify as Jews. And he started one of the major Orthodox synagogues next to Lincoln Square Center, one of the cultural centers in New York City. It started off really in his apartment, and then eventually they made a synagogue. But in the 1980s, on the behest of Shimon Peres and Yitzhak Rabin, who were prime ministers of Israel at one point in history, they asked him to come and establish Efrat, which is parallel to Bethlehem. He went through all the court system needed to make sure that there was nothing legally on the issue of Efrat, and he created Efrat, and people from all over the world came in to establish that community. So he was really known as a person helping Jews identify as Jews, and then he gets a calling from God to really change the status quo, how Orthodox Jews would be engaging with Christians on a theological level. And he found out about me, and then we created at the end of 2007 the Center for Jewish Christian Understanding and Cooperation. So I'm like in this weird space because every single institution in Or Torah Stone that he created is all about Jews, Jewish education, second export of rabbis, largest export of rabbis in the world, and I'm dealing with Jewish Christian relations. And it's because of that I met Adam, and here we are today. But what I want to show you is that he's so famous that Candace Owens. So I want you to do this afterwards. Google Candace Owens and Rabbi Riskin. This actually happens while we are in Israel. Okay? Candace Owens claims that Rabbi Riskin sent out an email basically bribing pastors with Bitcoin if they would go against Candace Owens. Now, one of the things about Rabbi Riskin is he is technologically challenged. He wouldn't be able to know what an email is.
And he can't spell email. I mean, he has no idea.
And he's also directionally challenged. One of the things of the proof of God for me is that not only Israel exists, but Rabbi Riskin ended up in the place he's supposed to be. But as you can tell, Rabbi Riskin is suffering from Parkinson's, unfortunately. He really couldn't articulate the priestly blessing the way he usually was able to do it because it's just his body is not in sync with his mind. And then somehow this fake thing happens with Candace Owens and spreads a very malicious piece of gossip that's just not true. And people went and said that it's not Rabbi Riskin who ever wrote that email, and she never apologized until this day. So the slander it shouldn't happen for a person what he's done for not only for Jews but also for Jewish-Christian relations. But he was very gracious to take some time out. It's very difficult for him sometimes to move. And we coordinated, and it was a surprise I gave to Adam.
It was pretty amazing to watch his eyes light up because people don't ask him to do that anymore. So really good, and that's it. So the next place that we went is another place that we went, I'll say, are the Pilgrim Steps. So there is near the Pool of Siloam, there are steps leading up to the Temple Mount that during the festivals that the priest would come down, or the whoever is supposed to be doing that, let's say, comes down and draws water from the pool of Siloam. So these are called the Pilgrim Steps. These are, correct me if I'm wrong, am I doing okay so far?
I don't know where you're going.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's I didn't know where you were going in Israel either. So anyway, and so these are very famous steps that they've only recently uncovered in the last couple of years, and many of the stones are original. There are very few places in Israel where you can say Jesus was here. Now, everybody will try and sell you something to say that they were there, but this is one of those places. He would have traveled this road. And he would have gone up this. And so we went and we had an incredible time. They've uncovered it all the way now down to the pool. From they go all the way up, don't they?
Yeah, they go all the way down to where, so just know this is called the City of David, just for people to know. So if you want to Google, because I'm not going to, that's a tour. So Google City of David, Pilgrim's Road. They're in the Bible. It tells us to go during Passover, Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles, that you should make a pilgrimage up to the temple. So what is that road? That's the road. So for many years, so they found this out of an oops situation. Oops meaning there was a sewer pipe that broke, and they started digging, and they found, oh, there's more here. And usually that's what happens. Happy accidents lead to monumental discoveries. And the City of David has amazing things that verify the accounts in the Bible. Here you have a Pilgrim's Road, and we know for sure that Jesus would have walked this because he was adhering to the Bible, and he made his pilgrimage up to the temple. That's the road. Now, the difference is that when Adam first went to the road with Joe and Karen Thompson, and we had bishops from the other movement. So we went over here, and it wasn't fully excavated. And now, for the very first time, Adam had the opportunity to go through the entire excavated route.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, because there's something there. Love this picture. David and I love to pose together. That's a recreation of a famous picture from years ago. But more importantly, the pictures on the right, you can see it's just these excavations are very new, and they're pretty incredible. And it's a road of history. So one of the things in the City of David, they found all sorts of seals from documents. They found coins. They found things that, as David said, verify the biblical account. But the most outstanding thing in the private tour that David was so gracious to arrange, actually, this is really funny. So he said, we're going to go to the City of David, we're going to see some things, and so I've got a private tour, but I need you to act like you're super important. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, like you're like a mover and a shaker in the Methodist movement. And I was like, okay, I don't know what does that mean?
Cardinal Adam.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll notice there's something on my arm. So part of excavation, when you dig, the way that archaeologists define levels, and they can tell where different cities were, are what's called ash layers. And so those separate many times different levels in an excavation, and they're able to tell, okay, there's been 5 cities at this location because of that, because there was a great fire. Because the greatest danger in the ancient world, among many things, but maybe the greatest, I suppose, is fire, because it just wiped out cities. And so when there was war or there were disasters that caused that, there will be a layer of ash. And so the guide, she was a really good guide, much better than That's It Tours. So she took that ash and wiped it on my arm and said, this is an ash from this, I forgot now, from this period of time.
From the destruction of the temple.
There it is.
Second temple.
So I have history on my arm from when the second temple was destroyed. So pretty. I didn't wash for like 5 days. No, that's not. So just
unbearable in the car.
It was. So that kind of brings us to this, the city of David, which is funny because there's David. But they've excavated a lot more, and they have now opened up the pool of Siloam in a way that many of you who've been before, it would blow your mind. It is doubled, maybe even tripled in size. It is enormous. The steps that are in that corner that you would have seen, now there's a whole nother section that is over there at the bottom left.
That's also another oops. They were actually taking a jackhammer to just loosen up some concrete because they were supposed to do something for the city construction. And then Ronnie Reich, who's the most famous archaeologist at the city of David, hears something, he says, stop. And that's what's...
He was on his lunch break, too.
Ronnie Reich was...
Yeah, he was on his lunch, seriously, he was on his lunch break just walking around, and he hears them digging and goes, wait. And that's how they found...
That's it.
And there you go, that's it. So here's some pictures of the pool of Siloam. It's opened up. You can see on the left, you can see there's some, they've just opened up this whole section that they have found that is so remarkable of history. And another place that this was in the city of David is Jeremiah's cistern. Now, if you remember in the book of Jeremiah, chapter, 38, verses 6 through 13, Jeremiah tells the king there will be no deliverance because Judah's wicked, and so the Babylonians are going to come in and we will be conquered, and if you resist, it will be far worse. And so they didn't like that statement. They didn't like that prophetic word from him, so they took him and put him in a cistern. That's the cistern. They've just discovered it. It makes sense archaeologically to give you another idea of how big it is. It's enormous.
There's a Starbucks right across the street.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Aroma. Okay, I wanted to move through this and just give you some pictures. So that's some places that we got to see, but this is from Monday. That Monday that I said was really hard, but I think it's important that we see, and I've kind of titled this The Hard Work. So this is in Kibbutz Be'eri, isn't it? Isn't that Be'eri? No.
This is Kfar Aza.
That's Kfar Aza. Okay. So what you will find in the different kibbutzim that were attacked on October 7th is many of them, as David said, the people have not moved back. And so this is what's left until they're able to get in and do renovations and do a lot of different things. So here's some pictures as well of what it looks like. This was when I was over there.
So that's Kibbutz Be'eri. Okay, inside there is Kibbutz Be'eri. So Kibbutz Be'eri, Kfar Aza, near Oz, were the most devastated. A lot of people were killed, and the sheer damage is overwhelming. And this is when he came over. A lot of it has been rebuilt since, but when I first was there, it's kind of overwhelming to see how much bullet holes and people burnt. You know that people were burnt in those homes, and then whatever fire was taking place with the arsenal and stuff. So, yeah.
You get a picture there. You get a picture of Kfar Aza.
So that's inside. So just look at the wall. You'll see those are major bullet holes from semi-automatic weapons. What you're seeing over there on your, I guess it's what, on your right-hand side, is the youth part of the community. These are people who are 18 years old before they get married. They have their separate one-bedroom house. And what's tough about Kfar Aza is the amount of young people that were killed along Youth Road. And where Kibbutz Be'eri, a lot of the elderly were killed. And what's interesting about Be'eri is the economic pulse of Israel. They're the ones who send the credit card statements, the bank statements for Israel. They have a whole building. That building was intact. It was the houses and the families that were attacked.
So credit cards are processed through Berry for the land of Israel, for everybody. That building would have been hit economically. It would have been devastating.
Been devastating to Israel.
This one was particularly difficult. This is the Nova Music Festival. This is where the most people were killed. Many of these young people were killed, unfortunately, along the road, running to try and get away, and in some cases running right into the arms of Hamas. So it was tough to walk through there.
It's 364 people were killed. It's the one spot where most Jews were killed on October 7th, running away from Hamas. There's still debates if Hamas knew about the music festival or didn't know about the music festival. At the end, there's a famous road called Road 242. This is where it's a parallel to the border of Gaza. So many of the people who are running away from the festival got a background.
What? Uh-oh.
Okay, that's another home movie. All right. So many people who are running away from the festival are going on Road 242, and then Hamas is on Road 242. So I just want to give you sort of like you have 3,000 trained Hamas terrorists along with 3,000 civilians. You have 6,000 people coming in. So just to give you a sense of how what Israel was going through for those communities is we got caught off guard, no question. The biggest security failure ever for the state of Israel. For the people living in the individual community, they felt completely abandoned, even though they weren't. It's not like we just sat there and didn't do anything. There were soldiers without having a command center telling them what to do that went in and fought for 4 or 5 days, depending which community, to take out Hamas. But one of the things that were happening with the music festival is that when people were running, they ran, and then we are taught when you hear sirens and rockets coming, you go to a shelter. And that's where many, many people also were killed, inside a bomb shelter. There is a Kibbutz Alumim is one of the communities that you helped with farming equipment. Hamas infiltrated that community, sat at the entrance gate. People running from Nova Site saw Kibbutz Alumim. There's this video that I saw that the girls were going to the gate. Hamas comes out. Obviously, one of them got shot right away, and then there's one girl just on her knees pleading for her life, and Hamas terrorist takes her out, just point blank in the head. So it's like the video stuff like that that's all over, that the news for some reason really didn't show. So just I would say I agree with Adam, was probably hardest for me as well. There's one thing is seeing the devastation on an individual kibbutz. There's another thing of you have no evidence, but you know something tragic took place. First time I went there was in November of 2023, during the first ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. I was able to get in because we work with the rebuilding division for the Army, knowing which projects to sow into, and I almost fell to the ground. What you're seeing right now is what is currently there. But in November of 2023, it was just poles, pictures of the family, but makeshift memorials all across the Nova Site by friends and family, knowing which the spot where their family member or friend was killed. What they did right now is they made it into one centralized area. So you should just know that you helped secure that area. Before October 7th, there was no cameras. The cameras that are there now are directly connected to the military base about 5 miles down the road. So there's a special technology that alerts if anything is happening. So just for you to know, not all the terrorists were caught on October 7th. And afterwards, there were people hanging out. The number one publicly accessible spot where everyone can go and just commemorate and mourn is this area. And because we were working with somebody, the highest level in the Army, they asked us to help, and we did. Thank God for your organizational partnership with others as well. And it took 6 weeks to secure that area. And because of that, they were able now to make it an official site.
The government, I think, bought that land or bought that site to secure it.
You have two components. There's the Jewish National Fund that owns that site. That's the park reserve. I didn't want to work with the Jewish National Fund. I wanted to work with the Army. The Army is responsible for security. They tell me exactly the cost. We pay the vendor directly, and then we get the security done.
So this is what we put in several places, the eye in the sky that we talked about. This is crucial. If these would have been in place, October 7th would have been very, very different because they would have seen them coming. They would have been able to do that. What Hamas did on October 7th is they took out all the communication towers. And so when they were invading in, the Army didn't know. They knew something was happening, but they didn't know what it was because they couldn't communicate. And so the cries for help in the communications equipment that each kibbutz has, they were sending messages, but they weren't going through. And then the base got attacked. And so everything you can see, it was just this amalgamation of things that made it very difficult. But part of what we did in partnering with the Isaiah Projects and others is to provide these eyes in the sky so that they can see into Gaza now. And so the Metula has one. There's several places that have one because you're literally this close to Gaza. It's just right there across that fence, and that's where they came in. So vitally important stuff that we're doing. That move on quickly to the beginning of the war within the war, as David said. That's a good way of saying it. This is a shelter that I was in, that I took a picture that they didn't know. So these are just everybody's gathered in and kind of sitting around waiting. Somebody's having some Pringles. I may or may not have had a couple of those. And so we're all just kind of there. So the way it began is to give you an idea, we were headed to Jerusalem on a Wednesday. I'm going to be there through Friday and drive back before Sabbath. We had David had some business there, so we had some things we had to do. And so we went there, and we were in this condo in Jerusalem. Now, remember when I said earlier that I had said, I need to get my passport fixed. I'd gone on about a week before and said, okay, I need to figure this out. So I went on the website, said, you got to get a new passport. I'm like, well, we got to go to an embassy to do that. Oh, there's an embassy in Jerusalem. So we went to Jerusalem, and on a Wednesday morning, I went very, very early well, not very early, but I went earlier than when it's open because that's what they said. Went in, filled out the paperwork, did everything. That place, by the way, is like Fort Knox. It was. I really felt like, step here and don't get out of line, and if you do, they'll kick you to the back of the line. So it was just very serious. We went in. I got my turned in my passport, and then they said, okay, your temporary passport will be ready either between 2 and 2:30 today or 2 and 2:30 tomorrow. And so I just was like, I'll just get it tomorrow. And so that afternoon it's been crazy, so I just took a nap, and then the next morning the war began. So we didn't. This was the condo that we were up in on the 24th floor when everything had happened, and on that day when we woke up. Now I have to say this: Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday, I want to say Wednesday morning or something, David said to me very cryptically, hey, I'm just saying, if you wanted to leave early, now might be a good time. And I said, what does that mean? He said, well, the United States is evacuating diplomats all over the Middle East. And I said, ooh, something's going to happen. I said, maybe there's been some threats or something like that. And then, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember it clearly. I said, who knows? Israel's probably going to hit Iran. Had no idea of that. And I decided, no, I'm going to stay for the duration. I didn't really think much of it. Next morning, David is probably thinking, I told you so. So so it started, and that morning was frantic because we woke up early and we looked at the news, went, oh man, and then David said, we hit Iran. That means they're going to hit us back. And we're on the 23rd floor of a condo in Jerusalem. And so David said, we got to get out of here. And I said, why are we in a hurry? He said, Adam, we're on the 23rd floor of a condo in Jerusalem. I said, okay, give me 2 minutes. And so everybody started moving, and so we jumped in the car. There was no one on the roads.
So this is a Friday. This is right before the Sabbath. So we're in Jerusalem on Wednesday. You tour around on Wednesday. On Thursday, Thursday night, the war begins. We attack Iran.
That's right. I went Thursday morning.
He went Wednesday, and he wanted to get his stuff on Friday. I think it was Friday morning.
Yeah.
So obviously he didn't get to the embassy. There's a few things you need to know about Israel. Number one target is the airport. The Tel Aviv, there's a special headquarters right next to what's called Azrieli Towers, sort of our Twin Towers, but it's 3 buildings. Right across from there is a special military base, it's headquarters, and Jerusalem. So if Iran is going to then retaliate, I don't want to be there. I felt tremendous responsibility for your pastor.
He was afraid.
So then we go about I think about 100 miles an hour.
It felt like it. But there was nobody on the roads.
On the road, so it doesn't matter. No cops. It's fine. And so we go and we make it to Netanya
in 5 minutes, actually.
Yeah. So it was like Elijah's chariot.
Yeah.
And the war begins Friday night. And it was nonstop for 12 days with sirens and waking up in the middle of the night. So there's 12 days of no sleep. On Saturday, Bat Yam gets hit. I don't know if you're going to show.
Yeah, I'm going to show that.
Okay. Bat Yam gets hit. It's a building. It's a ballistic missile is hit. Were hitting us. Ballistic missiles were hitting us. And on Sunday, we go to visit with Bridges for Peace, one of our organizational partners, to see what we can do to help. The first thing was meeting the fire department, division, the search and rescue team for the fire department.
Oh, don't get ahead. Okay. We're getting to that. So I wanted to tell them this. So what happens when an alert? So imagine getting an Amber Alert on your phone, but I use this app called SoFar. And Melanie, bless her heart, she also had that, so her hair was on fire every time one of that thing went on. But so what happens is you get an alert, and the alert tells you that a missile launch was detected from Iran, and you need to move to a shelter. Now, most apartments, I think all apartments, have a room that's reinforced that is the shelter. So in this case, in David's house, it's Ori's room, much to his chagrin, because we were in there all the time. But if not, then there are buildings, if they don't have a room like that, there is a shelter in the building, or in my case, next door to the building in another building.
Depending upon the age of the building, it's very important. Tel Aviv, a lot of buildings don't have a shelter. There are pictures, you can find this on the internet, that a lot of people in Tel Aviv were in the subway system, sleeping there for 12 days at night.
So what happens is you move toward the shelter. You don't go in, you just stand outside. Then if you hear sirens, then you move in. And you stay in there, theoretically, until you get the all clear. But as I quickly learned, Israelis listen. If there's no more bombs, they leave. They don't wait for the all clear. They just leave. I just watched them leaving. And I was like, well, okay, I guess I'm going to go too, because everybody left the shelter. But you get an alert. It tells you where the trajectory is in a region. So like it would say in the Sharon area, which is a region that Netanya's in, or it would say Tel Aviv, or it would say Jerusalem. And so it would give you in the alert that we're projecting that it's going to land in these areas. Incidentally, we got to meet the people for the Sharon area who send out those alerts. But anyway, so it gives you that. it isn't where that's guaranteed to land. It's from the launch. They're estimating that's what's going to happen, and the siren goes off once they see that it's going to be indeed in that area, and it usually changes. You'll get a kind of an update. Okay, it's really 4 cities over or something like that. But if you hear the siren, you go in until you get the all clear when you come out. And so what was amazing to me is no one in any shelter that I was in was ever afraid. Like, they were laughing, they were on their phones, oh yeah, we're in here, and some people were having a glass of wine. Some people were, they brought their lunch with them or their dinner, whatever it was. They brought little kids, all that. Everybody they just went in. And then you left and you go back to your homes, you finish your card game, you finish making dinner, you go to the grocery store, you take a taxi to go somewhere. It just, life goes on. And so it was pretty remarkable to see. The question is, what happens when you're on the road and you get an alert? There was the first alert we got when we were traveling on the road. David got quite excited about that.
Slightly.
So I said, hey, listen, why don't we just pull over and get under an overpass? And his comment to me was, Adam, an overpass is not going to stop anything. I said, David, if a missile lands on us, it won't stop anything. This is for shrapnel. And he was like, well, no, we're supposed to do this and this. And I said, well, look, in Texas, when you have a tornado warning, you get under shelter. Everyone knows if the tornado climbs in your back pocket, good luck. But you do that to stay away from shelter and all that. And so we did. And so that's a picture of us going in the shelter. We were both kind of in a ditch underneath. There were a bunch of different people. And you could hear the sirens, and then you could hear the missiles that were intercepting the ballistic missiles from the distance, like soft boom, boom kind of thing. And then there's David walking briskly back to the car that when I said, let's park under the overpass, he decided, no, let's park 100 yards away. So anyway, we walked back and forth. Now, from then on out, you parked under the overpass, but
Protecting the car.
Or you. So this is what I don't understand. The military says you're to exit your car. This is the official policy, to exit your car, away from your car, and lay flat on the ground. And listen, there was just some text into me that says, no, I'm not doing that. I'm getting under a shelter if it's my time, whatever, but I'm not doing that. So that was what we did on there. Here's a picture of Bat Yam that we went and looked at to give you an idea. Now, that was 6 blocks away from the blast. So the difference is Iran was firing ballistic missiles, not rockets. And ballistic missiles move at supersonic speed. So but from the time you get the alert until the time you hear the siren is minutes. And that Iran is a long way away, but it's moving incredibly fast. And so the damage from the strike you can see, and all of these that you're seeing, these aren't even the main place where it hit. We couldn't even get to that part of it. We could see it, the top part of it at a distance, but we couldn't get near it because they had roped it off. But it just basically kind of destroyed an entire side. Have any of y'all seen the Oklahoma City bombing picture, where kind of the center of the building was gone? Imagine a quarter of a building gone. And that was a picture of what that was. So we went there. We saw other news agencies. We saw some. When we arrived at Bat Yam, the prime minister had just left, like was pulling out. Some other politicians were there, and so we quickly moved to see what we could do on the ground. And we kind of connected with a group called Lahava, which is a rescue and recovery group. And these guys are like elite. I mean, they are in every environment, in every circumstance, in every situation. They're in helicopters, they're going through buildings, they're doing all sorts of things. These guys, and I believe they were like on 24-hour shifts, and they would come in. We saw some of them come in, and they were just covered in grime, and they were going to take a shower. They were going to get 5 or 6 hours of sleep, get something to eat, and go back. and they were going through the Bat Yam wreckage to find to people, hopefully to find survivors, but in many cases to recover. And so we met with them. That's a jackhammer that we purchased. This was an incredible story about the difference between the government and your neighbors. So we got there and we were talking about, we spent 40 minutes to try and convince them that we were there to help them get needs immediately. It took us 40 minutes to convince them. So our kind of MO was, okay, we're going to go to a place, we're going to, through either a family we know through the synagogue or through a friendship over here, a business partner or whatever, we were made aware of the need. We go to the site, we evaluate it, and then we're like, okay, what do you need? And they would tell us a need, and then we would go to the equivalent, the Israeli equivalent of Home Depot, and buy the stuff immediately and take it back to them. Now, if you're dealing with a government agency, that's unbelievable to you. So it took us 40 minutes to convince them that we were going to do that. In fact, they were saying to David, well, we have to fill out this form, and then you have to give the government this money and do that. And David kept saying, no, what do you need right now? He said it like 8 times to him. No, what do you need? Well, we appreciate that right now. And then make us a list. What do you need? Do all this, da, 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 da. And then we went and got it and brought it back, and they couldn't believe it. They were just shocked. I mean, we were saying, they were like, well, we need some diamond tip saw blades to cut through the concrete and rebar. And we said, well, how much are those? Well, they're like $100 a bit. $100? We'll buy 5 right now for you. Like, why is this an issue? But when you're dealing with budgetary issues, they just have no conception of that. So I think one day we went and spent $18,000 and brought them all the equipment and said, have at, and it was like Christmas. They couldn't believe that we were just going to do that immediately. They were shocked. Everybody we helped, it was like that. Now, we got better. I think it didn't take as long from the other groups, but they just were shocked that we were actually going to, there was no bureaucracy, there was no red tape. We just cut through all of that and got them what they need so they were able to do their job. So Lahava was one of those groups that we did that. Here's David, the mastermind meeting. These are great. I was thinking about this. You know, these ought to be on the Isaiah Project's website as a photo op. Look at that. Doesn't he look like he just knows what he's doing? And he's just, I mean, wow.
I'm just asking for a steak.
Yeah, on the top right it was, hey, where's the bathroom? And then they were just like, no, he was actually, that was part of the convincing with them. He was just trying to tell them, tell us what you need, and we'll go get it right now.
So just to give a sense of what was happening for us as Israelis with the Iranian phase of the war, when we're going to a search and rescue team, we're seeing the devastation that happens with a Bat Yam building. People died, and there are many people who were injured. You go to the search and rescue team, and you ask them, so if this happens multiple times, do you have the equipment? And the answer is we have 70% of the equipment, but we're missing the 30%. In my mind, I'm saying, okay, the government made a decision to hit Iran. When they're making that decision, they're taking into account of how many people, based upon the retaliation of Iran, how many people will die, how many buildings will be hit. I'm just thinking, wouldn't somebody in that decision-making process make sure for the search and rescue teams that they have all the equipment that they need and then some? And that's the crazy thing that I get frustrated on. Like, why is it that they don't have a diamond tip blade to be able to go through concrete? So again, there's a statistic that happens. There's a building that's going to be hit. Give a fighting chance for a search and rescue team to get the body out if it's alive or not. Definitely if it's alive. So this was the mission. Because once we did this for the fire department, then someone found out what we were doing, literally in the parking lot of my home, and says, my cousin is the head of the search and rescue team in Jerusalem, and he needs equipment. We go in the car, we go to Jerusalem, and we sit down, and here we are. We are working with the official search and rescue team for the Army. So for you to understand how this works, because I don't know how involved you are with other Israeli organizations that deal with first responders, but if you have a situation like Iran where you have ballistic missiles hitting, the first group that goes in is the Army. They assess this situation first. Fire department comes in next, followed by Magen David Adom, which is like your 911. And then there's Zaka, which deals with people who died.
And by the way, Zaka came over to Kerrville for flood relief.
Okay? So, but for us, it's about who's the first to go in that has the official authorization that determines the rest of what happens afterwards. And that was the way we operated. And so we provided tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment in a small rental car.
We were like, how's this going to fit? Well, if you lean forward with your face on the windshield, then I think we can put my leg up here. Remember that? So right in between it. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. But you know what made it? By the way, that particular day when we got that equipment, I had to really come, David, these people are trying to help us. Don't kill them. It took them 4 hours. We called ahead, an hour ahead, no, 2 hours ahead, and said, this is what we need. Can you have this ready? We arrived there and waited 4 more hours. And so David was looking for weapons. And I was, David, don't do that. These people, it was very frustrating. And so we were laughing trying to do all of that. In fact, I felt like most of my responsibility in our partnership was, David, it's going to be okay. Now, I just don't understand why the government doesn't provide these things. I do. I know how government operates. Yes, I know. And he was looking at me like, how can you be just calm over there? And I said, because this is nothing new. This is how it works, and we're going to fix it. So a lot of what we did is that. Another thing we did is we worked with Bridges for Peace for an outpost in an undisclosed location. I love saying that. That's just so makes it sound so much more important than it is. So
it's actually next to Bethlehem. We'll disclose it. It's actually next to Bethlehem.
And so here are the conditions that they were found in. So this outpost that they were sent to set up for a while because they weren't sure how the West Bank was going to respond, so they overlooked the West Bank. They sent them to this outpost. This outpost, to say that it was not fitted well is a huge understatement. The last military unit to operate and to be in that outpost was the British in 1948. The wiring was from 1948. There was no electricity. There was no running water. There was no water for drinking, no potable water. There was none of that. There were bunk beds in there. There were no appliances. There was nothing. And so we did what we did, and we jumped in. We bought tons of water. We got with our partners in Bridges for Peace and bought a bunch of equipment, bought a generator, did all this sort of stuff, showed up, dropped that off to them. That's this picture right here with the generator and all this sort of stuff and the soldiers. And we did all of that and got everything done so that they could just have something there. I think when we left, they had just gotten the water up and running, and they could have showers, and the electricity was, when you flip the switch, well, let's see what happens kind of thing.
Mostly reservists. I want to make this very clear. They're soldiers who are mandated to serve, and there's hundreds of thousands reservists constantly serving and being on the front lines. So who we're dealing with is mostly reservists.
So that kind of gets us to the end. So just some things that I wanted to share, some lessons learned in this. The first lesson I learned is I don't know how to do a sabbatical. I have no idea how to do that. And so I really, for the first few days, David would say, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. And he said, that's not an answer. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. What do you want to go here? I don't want to make any decisions, that's for sure. And so I was trying to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, what is this about? What am I supposed to go study in the library? Am I supposed to, read 5 books? What am I supposed to do? And kind of where I landed was that I was just to be. no expectations, no plans, no kind of, well, I'm going to read this book while I'm away. None of that, but just to be with my eyes open, my ears open, to pay attention everywhere I went. And I saw some pretty extraordinary things. So the first, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing on sabbatical. And the second is, I've discovered that who I am doesn't depend on what I do. It's part of it. But one of the things that Israel, and I don't think I told you this, one of the things that this trip there and everything that went on did is it pulled me out of the rhythm that I was used to. And I had to find a new rhythm. And it wasn't based on who I was. It wasn't because the places that I was staying, the people that I was talking to, and I'd say, well, hi, I'm doing this. And in fact, one person I said, well, I'm a pastor in Texas. And they said, what's a pastor? And I was like, that's called humility, folks. And so one person I said, well, I'm a minister. And they said, oh, you're in government. And I said, no. So it really removed me out of the rhythm that I had become used to. And I had to kind of dig deeper to figure out, who am I? Who I am is not dependent on what I do. It's part of it, but it doesn't depend exclusively on that. The next thing that I learned is that God brings beauty out of incredible horror. The thing I told David when we came out of Kfar Aza, where this woman was the one who was in Portugal, and she came, her father was there. It's interesting. That's a whole nother story. Her father should have died. He walked into, he's an older gentleman, and he walked into places that were in the middle of fire, under fire, and he made it through somehow. Unawares, he walked into places like there's a gun battle going on, and he just walks right through, kind of stuff. And she felt, I think there was a sense that she had a responsibility to come back and tell the story. And so I told David that this woman, her name is Ken, and that she was kind of the memory of Kfar Aza, and kind of took that role on there. And so I saw that. I saw the Saturday after the war began, the second war began, I was at the place I was staying, and there was an Orthodox gentleman, an ultra-Orthodox gentleman that came outside, and he was kind of relaxing, and I walked outside, and we knew something was coming, but we just didn't know when, so we were not going too far, and I said, wow, it's really quiet. It was about 10 o'clock, and he just said from behind me, he said, Hashem is doing miracles for us. And I don't know why, it just hit me and just kind of washed over me. We had heard that there was an attack in Beersheba, a hospital. Yeah, what's the name of it?
Sorka Hospital.
Sorka Hospital. The night before, for some unexplained reason, the nurses were insistent that the patients in the old surgical wing be moved out of it. And they moved all the patients the night before, and the next day, the old surgical wing was hit. And no casualties. And that's just one of like a dozen stories. And so when he said that, it was just a remarkable, 86% of all of the missiles were intercepted, and the ones that made it through, we kept talking about like, how are more people not dying from this? One day we posted this, and I was telling David earlier, I told my parents about this, and my dad was like, well, that's great. Adam posted a building on fire and just decided to post that up there, and no big deal. Hey, everything's okay here. And so we were driving to Herzliya, and we had already been delayed that morning. Like we were getting ready to leave, and then there was a siren. And this is when you've assimilated into Israeli culture. So the siren went off, and we were like, really? And then we just went into the shelter. It was like an inconvenience. And then we got out and got on the road, And then we realized that the missile that we went into the shelter for had landed in Herzliya, and that's the post that I made that had the flames coming out of it. It was a warehouse that was empty. So you had stuff like that all the time, and that God's word's just in my head. Hashem is doing miracles for us. It was truly remarkable to see the hand of God doing those things. And so there was incredible moments of beauty. One of the things that David brought out, he was very frustrated about this with the media, and I agreed with him, but they didn't talk about the resilience of the people enough. They were resilient in the face of horror, in the face of difficulty. They were adjusting. They were making the best of it. There was a beauty in that. That really has just hung with me. And then I would say this, the last thing is, I learned that relationships are everything. Everything. I think we're pretty good friends. I would say that that trip taught me a lot about the importance of relationships and friendships that last the test of time. You probably have some of those relationships. A large part of my dissertation was on relationships in the context of ministry and how those become catalysts. Relationships are everything. The people that we knew, the friends that we made. I met more people over there. I walked into some meetings that we had that I was just like, called Melanie and was like, oh, what am I doing here? I'm just like big time high rollers that were trying to do some projects, do some different things with the Isaiah projects, and I was just sitting in that meeting, and I got to be involved in that because of my relationship with him. One of my favorite things about the whole time over there was getting to spend Sabbath with the Necrutmans. It was so much fun. It was incredible the way they invited me in, the way I said thank you so much, and they were just kind of like, well, of course, you're family, and it just like, oh. It just blew my mind the way that Colony would not stop giving me food. Good Lord. The joke became, you have to tell her no 3 times. The level of hospitality, the invitation into, hey, this goy, this Gentile's in here, and we're just going to include him in the prayers and the blessings of Sabbath and all of those sorts of things, and to be greeted at the door by his sons like, hey, that doing just that whole kind of thing. Relationships are so very important. They matter more than anything else, I think. You can have a lot of money, but if you don't have any relationships that are close, you're poor. You're impoverished. So that's kind of, we could spend the next 5-6 hours about the different things going on, but I'm curious what questions that you have. And you can't ask, when do we eat? That can't be one of the questions, but we'll eat soon. But what questions do you have? Mike Panini, where are you? He's got a microphone, and he is happy to walk to you. And if you would use that microphone if you have a question for either David or I.
Hi, David. Erin Field. Thank you for your transparency and your effort and your time here. And you obviously have a lot of important things to be doing, and to take the time to come back and share this with us is super valuable. I'm the finance chair, for full disclosure. So for the next 18 months, what do we need to be planning for to continue to support you? Is that more through the Isaiah Project? Is that financial gifts? What does
Adam Thornton Ministries. If you'll make your checks out there, I'll make sure he gets.
That's it. That's it Ministries. Care of Adam Thornton.
That's it Ministries, yeah. So first of all, thank you. I just want to first acknowledge that I know it was a heady time for you guys for having your pastor in Israel and what you're seeing on the media. We were having a ball. I'm just letting you know that we were just having coffee and going, dodging ballistic missiles, but at the same time helping on the ground. The way the Isaiah Projects has been operating, because we're mainly an education organization. We create Hebraic resources for Christians to understand the roots of their faith. I just came out with an elementary homeschool curriculum called the Children of Abraham, which fuses critical thinking skills with the study of Scripture. That's the main focus of the Isaiah projects. Yes, we have humanitarian projects, which we help out single Ethiopian mothers, Christians in Bethlehem. But when October 7th happened, we were in triage. And triage, demands making sure your reservists are protected, those people who are most devastated and surviving from that need help, and then the rebuilding of it. And then you sort of like, okay, the main thing is, where is the government not helping that we can help that can have an immediate impact? So that was full force all the way to this last summer. And then September of last year, when we made a conscious decision to go into Lebanon, I was called again to help out. So just to give you a sense, I got these weird calls 72 hours before the Day of Atonement. Day of Atonement happens, Israel completely shuts down. There are no cars on the road. If there's a car, we know that person is not Jewish. 20% of our country is not Jewish, but if a car is going, we know that person is not Jewish. Everyone stops on the Day of Atonement. That means nothing is open. I get these weird calls right before, 72 hours before, people needing interesting type of equipment to protect themselves, including a unit that needed flame-resistant military bags, 90 liters. That's a very big bag. And then I found that we're going into Lebanon. So for 72 hours, including on the Day of Atonement, I had my phone on, and we bought everything we could before the Day of Atonement would take place. The relationships that we have is the Isaiah projects. I called up vendors, and I said, if I call you on the Day of Atonement, will you take my call, and I can pay and deliver equipment if need be? All the vendors said yes. That's a big deal. I did that, stopped, getting back into education. Adam is with me in Israel, and then the Iranian phase of the war happens. What can we do that has an immediate impact where the government is not providing? And that was the search and rescue teams provide that equipment. That is over, back to education. So we do have a fund for emergency purposes because we're not sure what's going to happen with the Houthis right now. Because what the Houthis have done in the last few weeks is put cluster bombs in their ballistic missiles. So the force of something is more powerful. This morning, our local airport in Eilat was hit by one of those missiles. One person died, one person was severely injured, another person had a panic attack and went to the hospital, but the airport got hit. Not every time we were going to do it. So as far as like emergency stuff, we only get involved when there's something that is immediate and we can go and take care of it. The security cameras is one of those type of things. But thank God we've taken care of that because of you. So I would just say, if it's an emergency thing for Israel, Adam will tell you about it. If it's the educational stuff, then obviously yes, if you want to, you could do it through the church as well. Because one of the big things that Adam didn't tell you, but I can tell you right now, is we're going to create the first ever Hebrew Bible audio drama platform for Israelis to engage in the Bible, but will also be used for Christians worldwide. In your own translation of seeing things in English, you will have the Hebrew in the background. It'll be the first time doing a dramatized Bible thing like that, like a professional acting, the top actors in Israel with the top.
That was the meeting I was talking about. Like, I need to leave. I don't belong here.
I just came from New York to finalize that meeting. That's a miracle in and of itself that they'd be willing to go ahead and invest Grace and Mercy.
And give you creative control, too.
Give creative control to be able to produce something like this. The next thing is really the Bible curriculums that we're producing to get it into the homeschool world. So that's where I'm at. So there's no immediate emergency. I want to make this very clear. A lot of things get covered by the government eventually. But that's not where I feel that's a good steward of monies. I don't want to cover the government. The government is responsible for things. But if the government is not going to do it, and you don't have organizations covering that, then that's where we'll come in. Okay? So I just feel like we're a small organization, and we only have a limited amount of dollars. So the way we operate is we pay the vendor directly, and then we immediate delivery.
Now, see, why couldn't you do tours like that? That would have been, that was great.
Hopefully that answers your question. I just want to be very transparent in the way.
Before we have another question, I want to tell you real quickly this. So David mentioned these bags that are flame retardant. In other words, they keep flame out. So this is, and I met the soldiers. So this church sent money to purchase those bags. The soldiers put their munitions in there and lock them up. They used that bag that we purchased for them. That a RPG hit near that bag, and that bag did not explode, and they were all near it. If it would not have been the case, if we did not provide that bag, that unit would have died. So we directly saved lives by what we purchased and gave toward.
Hi. I wanted to ask your thoughts on why you brought up Candace Owens, and there's other people that I can think of. Why are they turning against Israel? People that I listened to before are saying things that I don't understand. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on
Sure.
what's
going
is that
on, what we
happening?
would call
Yeah.
the Christian woke right.
Yeah.
That's the term right now. So you have what's called the woke left. The way that Israel's portrayed in the woke left is that Israel is violating human rights, and therefore they argue that we are no longer the authentic Jews of the Bible. And Israel doesn't have a right to exist. That's the woke left. Woke right, the way they present it is America is $37 trillion in debt. Israel is the poor person at the beggar's table from America for foreign aid, for a war they don't feel they should be involved in. You shouldn't be involved in any wars. Right now, it's America first. And America first means we don't deal with anything that has to deal with other people's wars. And what happens from that is the people of the Jews today are not the authentic Jews. It used to be that classic anti-Semitism is, you are Jews, we just don't like you. It could be based upon faith, it could be based upon race, it doesn't matter. The mutation of anti-Semitism was always, we were Jews. I think what you see for the very first time in history, both on the left and on the right, when they're dealing with this, is that we're not the real Jews. And what's kind of fascinating is that they go back to, let's say, the 5 books of Moses. But I'm like looking from a Christian point of view, and I'm like, where did Jesus grow up in? And who was he speaking to? Are those the real Jews? Like, that's where we come from. Like, there was that Second Temple, that end of Second Temple period. Jews, obviously, a lot of them had to get out because the Romans told us to get out. Our temple was destroyed and we were forced to go out. So, like, all of a sudden, I'm no longer a valid Jew. I think this is the most perplexing thing out of these, both on the left and the right, coming to the same conclusion based upon, one is America First isolationist 1930s presentation of how you deal with American foreign politics. And the other one is coming from human rights. We are, as Israel, we're never going to win the PR battle. We lost that on day one. We knew we were going to lose that on day one. We also lost the war on day one. We lost. We failed. We failed our people. We failed to provide them the security. What we're having right now is a response since October 7th. If you look at it from 2 years from now, how everything unfolded, you see that the Prime Minister made a decision to change the face of the Middle East. First, he needed to deal with Hezbollah, so the beeper stuff that you experienced last year, where members of Hezbollah all of a sudden had to go for surgeries in different areas of their body because a beeper blew up. That was one thing, but it was an operation that we didn't think that would be operated last year. It took 10 years to get to that operation. Okay, so just to let you know, that was not like an post-October 7th operation. It just worked out that way. You have to deal with Syria, because remember, last year, the Syria regime fell apart. So we're 15 kilometers inside Syria. For the very first time, we're controlling Syria and we're having Druze and Christian communities, which we help to provide medical assistance and food. Then you have the Houthis, then you have Iran. So if you look at it, I think the long-term aspect of the war was eventually to change the status quo in Iran. I don't know what we're doing specifically with Gaza City right now, but as long as we're in the war, the anti-Semitism maybe that was under the surface will always be now okay. It used to be you were pro-Palestinian, now it's pro-Hamas. And that I don't understand as well. How do people get to be pro a terrorist organization? That its whole mission is to wipe out the Jewish people and have no Israel. It's not about a two-state solution anymore. So my perspective is, at one time I bought into the line. It was like, there are 70 million evangelicals that love you, 600 million worldwide. If a Jew hears this, and we're only 16 million in the world, and you tell me 600 million people love me, then you're like, wow, this is amazing, I'm okay. But that bubble burst in 2014, and I just believe there's a remnant in Christianity that has an active call of Israel, and I think most people don't care, but I also don't think that most movements actually dealt with what's called replacement theology within the church. That the church replaced Israel once the Jews rejected Jesus as Lord and Savior. And because of that, we lost our covenantal status with God. And therefore, because we're not covenanted, we're no longer Israel. The church is the new Israel. And now, that's a theology, but that's a theology that went into practice over the centuries that caused much harm from the organized church to the Jewish people. I still think that's always part of the church. It takes a brave soul to go and rethink that and think differently that, yes, the Jews are still covenanted. You're grafted into that covenantal experience from a Christian point of view for Romans 9, 10, and 11. But I don't think most people are on board with that. And what you're experiencing right now is old school, anti-Semitic approaches to the New Testament to justify American policy specifically, that this is not Israel. How can you say I'm not Israel? I'm a Jew. No, you're not the biblical Jew. Well, what am I? I don't know what you are, but you're not. And therefore, sorry, you don't get foreign aid. And that's the ramifications of it. So that's my perspective of what's happening. I wasn't fully immersed in this until recently because I'm dealing with a country that was under attack, right? And so to think about the bigger picture, Candace Owens specifically was originally with Dennis Prager. I want you to understand this. She was probably the token African-American woman who was on board with Israel and the Jewish people, and then there was a turn, and the turn happened with Kanye West, and then she married a Catholic who is a pre-Vatican II Catholic. And a pre-Vatican II Catholic is a little different than a post-Vatican II Catholic, meaning there is a difference in understanding the Jewish people in the context of their Judaism, in the context of mystery and all this other stuff, where a pre-Vatican II actually believes that Jews are not Jews. The Catholic Church replaced Israel. That's her husband. And so all of that, plus Shmuley Poteach is not really attacking her every single day, calling her anti-Semite didn't help along with that as well. But she has an Israel moment, an anti-Jew moment every day. Tucker Carlson is a little different. Tucker Carlson, I think, just doesn't understand. You see this in the Ted Cruz interview. Ted Cruz gives the typical answer for Christians who will grow up with a love for Israel, Genesis 12:3. But look what Tucker Carlson does. Does Genesis 12:3 mean to be pro-Bibi? And Senator Cruz says, no, it means to support Israel. But does it mean Israel? The Israel of then, with Abraham, is the same Israel? He doesn't really think out his stuff. He's a guy who's present in the moment asking questions, but he's not a well thought out Christian who really understands his Episcopalian roots, right? So Tucker is a little different than Candace, but what you're seeing what's constantly coming up, what I've seen so far, is we're not Jews anymore, and that's a little bit scary in the new anti-Semitism that we see today. So I see the responsibility of the church in this is to say, no, they are Jews. And that doesn't mean that you compromise on Jesus in any way. You're going to still believe Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light, and no one gets to the Father except through him. That's fine. Whether I get salvation or not, I get from your point of view that I might not get that. But that doesn't take away that we are the beloved people of God, and there's still a plan for Israel. That needs to be articulated more and more. What I'm seeing is that there's a fear to articulate that there is a mystery to all of this. Hopefully that answers your question.
I haven't seen the Ben Shapiro documentary on the Vatican.
No, you're talking about Michael Knowles.
Yes.
Michael Knowles. So I want you to, okay. Michael Knowles, you should see it. It's about the Pope and Hitler and the Pope. Pope Pius XII. I didn't think, because I'm dealing with Methodists, I will deal with Catholics today, but fine. But I grew up with the concept of Pope Pius XII was Hitler's Pope, because that was a title of a book that someone wrote. And I had my own transformational journey about viewing Pope Pius XII because of Gary Krupp from Pave the Way Foundation. In 2008, I was invited to Rome to hear about a new view on, or maybe an old view reintroduced on Pope Pius XII. Pope Pius XII is not loved by Catholics either if you're a Catholic from Poland. I just want to make that very clear. It was a complicated pope dealing with a complicated issue. He had to make sure that his own church is taken care of and not being hit by Hitler. He knows that Hitler wants to take him out as well. He doesn't have an army. Vatican City, even though they dress nicely, doesn't mean they can go ahead and deal battle with the Nazis. It's complicated, but I know when I was introduced to this conference about Pope Pius XII, I was given the evidence. He saved Jews. He gave he worked back channels. So Michael Knowles' thing is based upon that original conference I went to. You should just know this, I was the one who delivered to Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Israel, an entire file on Pope Pius XII for them to review their stance on Pope Pius XII. Yad Vashem did change their stance a little bit and more neutral. I encourage you to see this because it takes bravery from Ben Shapiro to allow Michael Knowles to do this, because that means Ben Shapiro is going to take a lot of heat, because most Jews, I say 99% of Jews, think Pope Pius XII was in cahoots with Hitler. So for Michael Knowles to do this is brave, but a lot of that stuff that he got was from my friend Gary Krupp from Pave the Way Foundation. So I hope that answers your question.
And that's it.
That's it. Any other questions or comments or whatever? Wow.
We're good. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. How can you pray for Israel? Great question. What is it that you specifically need to pray for? Number one, wisdom for the government leaders to truly see God in the decisions that they are making and not about PR points. Number one. Okay? Adam knows my opinion about my government. There are certain people I just don't like. Ben-Gvir, Smutsvich, even my prime minister. At the end of the day, my prime minister failed and should be held accountable for what he did. I'm not going out to disrupt the streets in Tel Aviv to go ahead and make that point. I think a prime minister has to make difficult choices. As a person who deals with people who have family still as who has friends who have family who have their loved ones as hostages, a prime minister has to make a decision at the end of the day whether or not it's Israel in its security overall or it's the hostages. Obviously, that doesn't take away from the right of the families to go ahead and protest and advocate for their families to be released. It doesn't mean that the prime minister needs to listen to that, but at the same time shouldn't promise that it is the priority. So that leads to the second point. The prayer for whoever is left alive, that they continue to have the strength to live through who knows when they will be released. Number 3, comfort for the families who went through so much tragedy, who lost loved ones on October 7th. I would say even further, the soldiers who paid dearly with their bodies and not only died, I'm talking about the injured. There are many that we don't talk about this in the media, many who've gone through a lot of injuries. But also last week, people who have committed suicide because of PTSD. So there's a lot of PTSD. I can admit that I myself was suffering a little bit. My family noticed that I would lock the door. It's a stupid thing to do. I never lock the door. I live in a safe neighborhood. And if I locked the door and I had a Hamas terrorist, it wouldn't help anyway. But it's a PTSD reaction because you think that somehow I lock the door, everything's going to be fine. All right? So the country's we're going through PTSD and needs to be healed. So I'm giving you like really specific points. Also, the prayers for the reservists on the front lines who've been away hundreds of days at a time from their families, it takes a toll on the families. It's not easy for a soldier to come back from combat, to see what they saw, and to function in a family dynamic like it was pre-October 7th. Last but not least is the reconciliation between Jews and Christians that continues to further advance than ever beforehand in a time where many wish to attack it and marginalize it and say it's not important. I believe what you have done is a miracle. That's why I'm here. I think you're all miracles even though you think you're not. I don't know any other time in history that a church will come to the aid of the Jewish people like you have done. This is why I come here. Because how can I not and say thank you at least? And now you lent your pastor during a major phase of the war. And without him, I don't know if I was going to be able to handle the Iranian phase of the war. I could tell you right afterwards, once I knew I got him to Jordan, once I knew he was in the house of Melanie, I crashed because I didn't have any sleep, and I told my wife, I need to leave. We need to go on vacation somewhere. Go to Copenhagen, see people ride bikes because that's normal there. And that was it. But I don't know if I was going to be able to handle, because it was more scarier, the 12 days for me personally, with all the jokes aside, than what would happen on October 7th. Because what we saw at Bat Yam, if God definitely was there protecting us, but if it wasn't, it would have been much, much worse. And then, so for me, it was like, if I'm going to be a target and a statistic, I'd rather be a statistic doing something for God than sitting in my bomb shelter waiting it all out. And credit to your pastor, he felt the same way. So, Bonnie and Clyde, I don't know.
Any other questions? Okay. I'd like us to do something maybe a little different before we break. I would really like for us to pray for David. He doesn't know this is coming, and he's a real touchy-feely guy. He loves hugs and all that sort of stuff. But I would love for us to pray over him and his son and just gather around in our fashion and lay hands on him and pray for him. As part of the reason that I'm so passionate about this is because I share his opinion that what we're doing is truly, it's changing the world. David is on the cutting edge in a lot of ways in Jewish-Christian relations. People look to him, and I want us to be a part of that. I certainly want to be a part of that. But I think one of the things that we can do, aside from sending financial support to the Isaiah projects, and y'all have been absolutely amazing in that. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. But the other thing is that we can pray for him and stand with him. It's easy to love Israel and the Jewish people when everybody else does. It's hard when they don't. And so we want to pray that at least our congregation, I know there are others, will be willing to take that stand. And I think the way we do that is praying for the peace of Jerusalem. So I'm going to ask David if you and Ariel if you would sit next to him in that chair. Don't go down that way. You're old. Go over here. And then I'm just going to ask us to gather around and to lay hands on them and we'll pray over them. So please go ahead and do that. I'll stay up here so I can pray and allow y'all to get in close. Jack, I know you're a big hugger. Why don't you get in there? Yeah, why don't you want to stand? Okay. Why don't you stand right there? Okay. If you can't get around there, just put a hand on the person in front of you. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us life, who has made us in your image, who makes us to live out this life, pointing to you, Father. We give you thanks because by your hand all things are sustained. We give you thanks that your name is great and greatly to be praised. And we give you thanks that you choose to partner with us to transform the world. You have no need of us, Lord, but you choose to need us. And so we pray for our brother here who is at the very cusp of what you're doing in the world, of the partnership between Jews and Christians, of the common heritage that we have, of the faith that we possess, of the partnership going forward, God. And I pray that whatever it is that you're doing in that world of Jewish-Christian relations, Lord, that you would use this man and his family at the very forefront, that you would protect him and watch over him, that you would give him more opportunities to serve his country and to open the eyes of Christians to their Jewish heritage. Lord, I thank you for our friendship and the friendship that we have with his family and the partnership that we have with this church. Lord, that he is a friend of this congregation. Help us to not only support him financially, but to lift him up in prayer and to lift the people of Israel up in prayer in this season and in this time. Lord, may we stand with them even when it's difficult. And now we send him forth with blessing. We send him forth with our support. And we pray that you would watch over he and his family. We pray all of this in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord, and all God's people said, amen.